So one of the reasons I like being in Jakarta or in Asia is because the political dialogue has to be sensible. Just take a look. Just imagine if you were running a country or in charge of running a country with respect to all the different complications that happen when you don't control your own currency or perhaps your own technological standard. But just ordered the pizza. It's right here. It's in English. So again, I'm ordering something in a foreign country in a language that is not domestic. I'm walking over here to the hotel. The hotel is running a computer system, a computer software that is probably American, maybe Microsoft or someone else. I'm gonna walk outside right now and you're gonna see again that everything comes down to infrastructure. So I walk outside right now, I've got a bus that's passing me right here. I've got a train system that may not be linked to a cohesive national system. And so the first thing you notice that when you come anywhere in Asia are perhaps the traffic jams. You're looking right now at a lot of different things going on here. And let me just give you an idea of what it looks like to live in the corner of a city with 20 million people and still have it work reasonably well. Right now I'm now above a train station. I'm now looking at I'm not looking at a traffic jam. That's because I'm in the corner. There probably is a traffic jam somewhere else. But I'm sort of on the outlet area. On that, there's a bus station right over here. So first of all, how do you get there? Just take a look. There's no way for me to walk across the street. I'm going to have to go down over here, up there, go up the stairs and cross the street. That's the only way I'm going to be able to go to the bus stop. Once I'm on the bus stop, I'm going to think, whose card do I use? Whose software is going to be on that card? Are they going to accept cash? And again, look, we've got one bus coming in here, and right behind it is another bus. And you got a taxi as well. And so you're looking at all these different transportation systems, and this is, I'm not even in the busiest area, by the way. So this is a fairly upscale area of Jakarta. You look over here. You've just got all these pieces coming together in just one section. And so if you are in Asia and you're a politician, the first thing you have to think about is infrastructure. And it's become more complex when that infrastructure is no longer linked to a bridge made of concrete and steel. It's now linked to software. And so whose software are you going to use? And now that brings us to the second issue. Are you going to use American software, EU software, or Chinese software? And so that becomes a little bit more complicated because now your neighbors are in China. But right now your investments post-World War II have been from the United States and possibly from the EU. So when you put all these things together, right, you can see how you now have to deal with balancing two competing powers. And you may have to do it, at the cost of one of your neighbors. So you put all those two things together prohibit most Asian politicians in Southeast Asia from trying to make a discussion or from trying to go after political opponents based on social issues. Because when you have this many people in one place, you cannot be seen to divide anybody. It's not possible. No one will take you seriously. And the United States, in comparison to, say, Shanghai or Jakarta, is sparsely populated. There's a lot of land, and comparatively speaking, not a lot of people. And so they can afford, in part, to, again, this is just normal traffic. So politicians in America and in the EU can afford to spend time on irrelevant issues and even divisive issues because, first of all, they've forgotten their history, or they haven't been teaching it very well. But back to the point, the other issue is now you've got the software, you've got to balance these competing powers. What about, how do you get goods coming in? You can't produce everything yourself. You want to have some variety in the supermarkets. Now you have deals. If you're in Indonesia, you want to get closer to Australia. That might be complicated because Australia is on a security system post-World War II that is more Western than Eastern despite its geographic location. So again, these are all, with globalization, more and more and more complex. And no one will take you seriously if you start talking about what happens in people's bedrooms, or if you start picking on minorities. So you go back and forth, and so in order to get products into the country that you don't have, or that you cannot make yourself, you have to control your shipping routes or partner with someone who can help you protect your shipping routes. So you've got, once you figure out all these different issues, infrastructure, balancing superpowers, what software to use, what technology to let in the country, how to handle that data and technology, and then how to protect your naval shipping routes when you don't have the strongest military or the strongest navy in the world. When you put all that together, those issues by themselves are going to control and dictate the discussion. So to the extent that you have issues in Asia, you're going to be dealing with, and you are, with country-to-country issues, anti-Chinese or anti-American issues. We're not going to be dealing with domestic issues that single out minorities. And that's one of the reasons why the United States is falling behind. Because social cohesion, once you've lost it, is a terrible thing. It can lead to so many other problematic issues. And so it's particularly frustrating because it's only being used in the United States to maintain the status quo. Because at the end of the day, the conservative and liberal viewpoints are very easy to explain, with respect to all these other issues that are dominating the headlines. If in fact you are a conservative, you're going to just talk about the fact that what stays in your bedroom stays there. It's based on privacy. That right to privacy is in the law, it's in the Constitution, and we don't want to publicize it because it's private. And private and public don't mesh. And that's a very simple solution or simple approach, very straightforward approach that's enshrined in the Constitution and so on. Of course, with the NSA and with Edward Snowden's revelations and other whistleblowers, we know that we don't necessarily have a sacrosanct right to privacy. But still, in the home, it's something that the Supreme Court has always been able to protect for the most part, with respect to the Fourth Amendment and so on and so forth. So that's the easy conservative viewpoint. Let's keep it private. We don't care what happens, what your orientation is or whatnot. Keep it private. The liberal viewpoint is also very straightforward. So we can't keep it private because historically we've had discrimination against certain groups, and we have to publicize, our willingness to be open and tolerant. And particularly when suicide rates or self-injury rates among certain populations is skyrocketing. And so we have to counter hate with something. You cannot allow hate, whether it comes from overseas troll farms or whatnot, to go unmitigated. And so you have to publish, you have to publicize, support, otherwise you're going to lose your minorities. And a lot of those minorities may be able to contribute something, important, whether it's Einstein, who left Germany in 1933, whether it's the scientists on the Manhattan Project who left Eastern Europe. A lot of those people, if not themselves, perhaps may have a family member that can contribute something. So it's all about a war for talent. And you can't have a war for talent by being silent, by keeping things private. You have to publicize your tolerance. So these are very simple things. And you notice that in an era of sound bites and social media, if you try to say these things, it's not going to go viral. And that's when you realize, again, that these discussions are not intended to further social cohesion. They're intended to keep the powers that be in power. Because as long as you're talking about these issues that have two competing reasonable viewpoints, you're not going to get anywhere on things that really matter, like finance, inflation, regulation, and so on and so forth. And part of the problem in the United States is how much military spending has overwhelmed the academic branches as well as the legal branches, that again have failed to really protect the rights enshrined in the Constitution. And so for the lawyers to be able to push back, and right now they're not pushing back effectively, that's why they're able to be mocked by the military branch, by the executive branch. And it's because they have to push back, they have to reestablish a right to privacy that actually means something. And they have to reassert themselves against the force of a global military spending situation, whether in Ukraine or otherwise, NATO or otherwise. It's designed to be as cohesive as possible internationally, though not necessarily domestically. So I like being in Asia in part because of these issues. We don't hear about abortion all the time. We don't really see it as a national issue. And so it's a lot of fun being here, especially during an election year, when you can focus on just issues that are at arm's length.